Before we start writing any actual conditions for our security logic, I want to start by explaining the match keyword. Before we create a rule, we first need to define where in the database that rule applies to. That represents a path in your database. You'll notice by default that our rules start with service cloud.firestore. Then it's followed by a match block that points to the root of the database. This is basically just boilerplate code that puts you in the root of your database. Now, there are three main types of matching patterns: a single document match, a collection match, or a hierarchy of collections and subcollections. Let's start by looking at the most granular type of match, a single document. Let's imagine we have a special document in the database that's shared by many users, and we need to apply security logic to it. We can do that by saying match /users/ the document ID. And we could continue extending this path if it were nested under a subcollection. Now, writing a rule this granular is not very common. In the vast majority of cases, you'll likely be writing security rules for an entire collection all at once. And the way we achieve that is by wrapping the document ID in parentheses, making it a wildcard. This will apply the rule to every document in the collection and give us access to the document ID as a variable that we can use in our conditional logic here in the rule itself. We'll look at many examples of this throughout the course, but basically this doc ID, which could be named whatever you want, is available here to compare to other values like the currently authenticated user's user ID or other documents in the database. Now, one really important thing to keep in mind here is that the current format of our rules only apply to this users collection. Take, for example, if we allow user documents to be read, but users also have an items collection nested underneath it. Now, because we're allowing reads in the parent collection, you might wonder if reads will automatically be allowed in the subcollection of items. And the answer to that question is no. In the current format, any user can read a user document, but they can't read an item in the subcollection nested under users. It's basically isolated there with its own security logic. However, that's not always desirable. In some cases, you want to have a rule at the top level that cascades or applies down to all of its subcollections and their subcollections. Let's imagine now that the item subcollection should have the same security logic as the parent collection. It'd be cumbersome to have to repeat the same security logic over and over again. Luckily, we can use something called a recursive wildcard. In the parent match block, inside of the braces, we add =** after the variable name. This will tell the rule to apply not only to the parent collection, but also to any subcollections nested underneath it. In this example, it means that an allow read in this collection will also apply to the items collection. That allows us to efficiently apply the same logic to many subcollections, but at the same time, we need to be careful with this syntax and make sure that's what we really want in all of the subcollections. The last thing I want to mention about match is that as your rules grow more complex, it's important to always keep in mind where you are in the actual database tree. It can be pretty easy to place a match block in the wrong place, and then it won't apply to the actual database location that you're expecting. So the main takeaway there is that your rules should reflect the actual database structure itself. And now we're ready to move on to the next concept, allow.